Hi, welcome to another edition of End Credits, and today we're going to be looking at Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the second of the Indiana Jones movies. Few facts and figures. First of all, the movie was released on the 23rd of May 1984 and was directed by Steven Spielberg. Budget was 28 million, but it managed to gross $333,107,271. Now, given that Raiders was such a phenomenal success, it was obvious that there was going to be a second movie. Now, this one was different in that this was actually a prequel to what had gone before. Instead of setting the second movie just a little bit further on, this was actually set before Raiders. So that was kind of interesting. So we weren't going to see the Nazis in there. So that was fair enough. We've got a different baddie. But for me, this was, for a long time, the weakest movie of all the Indiana Jones movies. Simply because somewhere along the line, it lost its charm. Instead of going for the mysticism and the adventure type, they kind of went more for the gore, the nasty bits of the creepy crawlies and all that. And yet we did have plenty of creepy crawlies in there. We still had Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford. We had Kate Capshaw, who was playing Willie Scott. The opening was probably as comic book as you're ever going to get. I mean, you've got Kate doing this, anything goes dance routine. You've got the title behind her, but she's kind of partly obscuring it, so you can't. So you couldn't get any more comic book than that. We had Ki Hu Kwan playing Short Round. I apologize if I've mispronounced the names. I apologize. That's just me. Sorry. But you've got Amrish Puri playing Mola Ram. This really was this really was a gore type thing. This didn't have the charm of the first movie. This was more going towards the horror side. And to me, that kind of ruined it a little bit for me. You had the scene where they were having dinner, and and that to me was a bit of a kind of. I could happily go past that. It's one of those. Do we really need to see people eating monkey brains and stuff like that? We also see Indy falling under the curse by drinking this, and that's quite brutal. I mean, that's about as close to waterboarding as you're going to get, and it really was horrific. In fact, if I remember correctly, the British Board of Film Classification nearly gave it a much more adult rating because of a sacrificial scene where someone's lowered into a fire pit. There's a bit where his heart is ripped out. They said it was actually on the very edge. It was the highest rating that they gave the movie, without it going into the more adult choices. It still has a great climax to it. Is that fight on the rope bridge, but to me, the movie was kind of spoiled by the insistence on the sort of, well, the more horror aspects on it. Seeing people falling and torn apart by crocodiles, having their hearts ripped out, the beating heart still ripped out. Yeah, it kind of lost its charm. I think they were probably going more for the sensationalism, and to me, it didn't really work. It's one of those movies I could easily bypass. I could watch the first movie, I could watch The Last Crusade, and I could happily ignore Temple of Doom. And it's a shame because the temple scenes themselves, this large cavern, and then you've got this chase scene in the mines. That couldn't have been easily. That was probably a nightmare to film in itself. Brilliantly done, I must admit. But for all that, if we're going to the more sort of the ooga booga element, it kind of ruined it for me, unfortunately, and that's quite sad. Because they definitely upped the scale from the first movie, but they didn't have John Rhys Davies or Denham Elliott in it, which is quite. I would have thought the Denham Elliott's character would have still, been around, even if John Rhys Davies's character wasn't. But that's how it goes. But, so for me, sadly, Temple of Doom doesn't so much get the thumbs up. It's more of a meh. Doesn't get the thumbs down, but it does get the take it or leave it, unfortunately. Well, that's all we've got time for on this edition of End Credits. I'll see you again for the last in the movie series of Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.